Hey everyone, good evening. Good evening. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future. Thank you so much for joining into this live stream this evening. I am really thrilled to have the guests we have with us tonight, who is a topiary specialist. Try to say that fast 3 times and see how your mouth starts working. I had the privilege of seeing Mike do his incredible work almost 2 years ago now at the Cape Fear Botanical Garden. So I thought it would be really interesting to bring him on for people to learn about this as a career pathway. But before we begin and before I bring Mike on, I would like to do a public service announcement. And for those of you that are joining in, please feel free to ask your questions, to make your comments. We want this to be interactive. So please, and if you're watching this on the replay, you can still ask your questions. So one of the things I always like to do is just to give people some information to help them in the college search and the college process. So I wanted to share with you a recent podcast that I listened to that I think would be of great interest to people. So let me see if I can find it. Yes. So I actually have it on my Instagram page. So if you go to my Instagram page, and you click on this one, podcast recommendation, you will see it there. So this podcast recommendation is with Jason McGrath, who is the Associate Provost and Director of Undergraduate Studies at UNC Chapel Hill. I think this is a wonderful podcast for folks to listen to if they are interested in attending UNC Chapel Hill. And this goes for in-state students and out-of-state students. So you see the URL on the graphic and it's also there. So please take some time, listen to it, share it with other folks that you know that may be interested in Chapel Hill, because there's some fantastic information there. And I think it's really important for students and families to have information so that they can make informed decisions. So again, that's UNC Chapel Hill podcast that will help you make a decision about whether or not you want to apply to Chapel Hill. So with that being said, let me introduce our guest. So this evening we have with us Mike Gibson, who is a world-renowned topiary artist from Youngstown, Ohio, now living in Columbia, South Carolina. He has over 30 years experience in beautifying public spaces. From starting at a young age, he quickly found his passion, which led him to a successful career as one of the nation's leading topiary artists and educators in the industry. He has been featured on HGTV's reality TV show, Clipped with Martha Stewart, and was previously the artist in residence at the famed Pearl Friar Topiary Garden in South Carolina. He currently leads lectures, demonstrations, and workshops, educating garden community, on the art and therapeutic benefits of topiary. Mike, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest, for being here today. I am so thrilled. I remember the day that my cousin and I went over to Cape Fear Botanical Gardens to see your demonstration. It was hot that day. It was so hot. But I remember sitting there. I know I was there I want to say close to 3 hours, but I was amazed at watching the work that you were doing. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, it was very hot that day. I remember it like it was yesterday. I appreciate you for staying and sticking around, because it was a 2-hour demonstration, but it did roll over for maybe another hour till I finished them. But Cape Fear Botanic Garden, beautiful display garden there. Some beautiful topiaries out of boxwood that I created for them. Yes.
So Mike, when I talk to people about topiary specialists, they're like, well, what is that? So just give us your definition or your description of what the work is that you do.
Well, it's really simple. You probably see this all the time, but a lot of people probably just don't associate themselves as being, topiary specialists or topiary artists. But any shrub or tree that is trimmed into any type of shape, whether it be abstract or
Hmm.
geometrical, it is considered topiary. It's just the art of pruning trees and shrubs into some type of ornamental shape. And I specialize in doing this beautiful art, this beautiful ancient art. This is my specialty, my gift to the world. I was blessed to
Yes.
have an artist's eye already. My father's an artist, my mom's a beautician, so I grew up around this
Yes.
creativity.
Yeah.
So I was blessed to have that. And yeah, topiary is something that a lot of people don't recognize. You don't see a lot of it in the United States, unfortunately, but you're starting to see it because I'm creating topiary everywhere around the
Okay.
country. But yeah, it's more popular in the UK and overseas. You see it everywhere. But the US, we love our landscapes, but we're not too too interested in the topiary. Just don't know enough about it. So I'm glad to be here and try to give some more information. And hopefully, people will be inspired to become topiary artists too.
Oh, that would be great. So, folks, I'm going to show you very quickly. I'm going to share with you some photos from Mike's website so you can see exactly what he's talking about. So this is just one page of his website, so you can see some of the works that he has created. Look at this. I mean, come
Oh,
on,
the
folks.
memories.
I know. Look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm looking at my
Hours.
poor little bushes out there, and I'm like, oh wow, they don't even they don't even look anything like this. So, folks, this
Yet.
is what it means. Yet that's true. So I urge all of you. You'll have Mike's contact information. You'll have his website and everything so that you can go and look at this because I think it's so important that you have the opportunity to see this kind of work and understand it. Those of you that know me, you know that I am into helping students expand their knowledge of the different types of careers that are out there. And sometimes there are careers that don't necessarily require a 4 year degree. So that's part of why I wanted Mike to come on. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about your educational start and how you got to where you are today.
Well, it's interesting. I started doing topiary and clipping trees and shrubs when I was young. I was only about 7 years old when I really started getting into it. But I went to school. I went to Youngstown State University for a semester and majored in fine art. Now, I wanted to be an artist like my father, and I knew I was always drawing. Regardless of the medium, I was always creating something. I knew I was going to be an artist. I just had to find what medium I was going to use.
Mm.
And after a semester there, I moved from Youngstown to Columbus, Ohio, to start my adulthood and live life. I moved out my parents' house and said, I'm ready for the world. I wish I could have stayed a couple of years longer, but it was great. It was great because I moved to Columbus and I went to Columbus State Community College and I switched my major from fine art to graphic design. I was really interested at the time with working with computers and doing like web design and just being creative on using InDesign or Photoshop, whatever it may be. I was really interested into that, and I lasted maybe a couple semesters there before I picked up two jobs and became a working man. And I got into sales, and I stayed in sales for about 15, 17 years. I worked in the sales field. I did door to door,
Okay.
working for AT&T, knocking on random people's door, asking them what kind of internet and cable they have. But I tell you that prepared me for my career now. It really did. Learning how to speak publicly to
Mm.
anyone. It doesn't matter who answered that door. I was ready and I was prepared and I was confident to sell them a product. So that eventually poured over into me creating my own business. I always was doing landscaping and cutting grass as a side hustle. That was my
Right.
thing. By 10, I was doing the neighbors, and high school I was across town, and I was even cutting
Hmm.
hair. I was a barber because my mom's a beautician and she had a shop in our basement. So I would use the shop, $5 holler. I cut everybody's hair for $5, and it was really well, really good because I'm an artist. So I was really, into it. But eventually, in Columbus, it's really interesting how I combined the two and really got started into becoming this entrepreneur and developing my business. And it was because one day I sketched out a design and I put it into my cousin. It was a cousin of mine. He was a basketball player, and I sketched out this really intricate design. I put it into his head. It's an Adidas symbol with his number 35, and there was a basketball surrounding it. It was in the back of his head, and it was that hair art, that hair sculpture, is what really got me into saying, you know what, if I can sketch it and I can visualize this, I can do anything. What can I do with a tree? It changed my whole perspective of looking at trees. And before I had locks, I even had my own type of hair sculptures. I wish I would have sent a picture to show that. But I had, think of, the 70s and 80s, early 90s,
Yes.
where they had the
Mm-hmm.
Gumby. Well, I had this box. I had this, this nice size box, and I would sculpt my hair. And I came up with over 150 new variations, never before seen hairstyles. And it wasn't cut, not like that Gumby, it wasn't cut.
Mm-hmm.
I would just get some gel and I would sculpt it. And that's really what got me, I was creating topiary in my hair. And I started looking at bushes a lot differently. And I started parting the bushes and opening them up like I would do hair. Right. So I'm sketching out designs and I'm putting it into the bush. And, one thing led to another. And I said, I'm doing something different. Nobody's doing, everybody's doing landscaping and cutting grass, but there's something I can do to take this a step further. And I researched and started perfecting my craft, and eventually I heard of this gentleman by the name of Pearl Fryer. Years later, after I was creating what I call property art, I was
Mm-hmm.
beautifying properties artistically. So I'm a property artist, right? I remember I said I had to find my medium, and I was just using the landscape, people's properties, as my medium, to sculpt and create these whimsical, adventurous, out of this world landscapes. And then I heard of Pearl Fryer, and that changed my life. I heard that he was a topiary artist, and I said, well,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I got to be a topiary artist now because I want to do exactly what this brother is doing. He's the only black man I've ever heard of doing topiary. I'd never heard of anyone of African American descent, doing topiary, quite like what he was doing. It was
Right.
just amazing, and that blew my mind. And now I saw what he was doing as freedom. He could do whatever
Mm.
he wanted with the tree, and I wanted to do the same thing. And that was my gateway to be more free and start carving out my own lane and creating topiary that told stories and told these personal narratives, and started creating my own style called illusion topiary. So
Okay.
it's amazing how it all started from just trimming the hedges at around the house and around the
Mm-hmm.
landscape at 7 to cutting hair, to going to school for fine art, learning the fundamentals of art, to going to for graphic design, and being in sales. And eventually I worked my way up in sales to being a sales manager for Staples. That was
Okay.
probably the last job before I left. And eventually, because I was always doing topiary as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
But one day I was looking outside and I saw this landscape crew across the street, and I said, you know what? I have to do it. I got to take that leap of faith, and I did. I quit my job, my salary job, and I ran one of the top stores in the country at that. And I left Staples within a couple of days. I put in my 2 weeks, and I said, I can't wait 2 weeks. Unfortunately, if anyone watching this, please, put in your 2 weeks. It worked for me. It may not work for everybody. I had a lot of clientele already, and it just made
Mm-hmm.
sense to take that leap of faith and to go full time of running my business and to beautifying landscapes with topiary.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love your story. I love how you talked about, the different skills that you acquired along the way. And when it seemed like everything came together, you had those communication skills from your sales job. You had the tenacity from being a door-to-door salesperson, because that takes a lot of tenacity to
It
just knock
does.
on somebody's door and start a conversation and hope they're going to not slam the door in your face.
Oh, that
And this,
happens a lot.
yeah, I'm sure it
But you keep
does. I'm
going.
sure it
You
does.
keep going.
And
That's
I
that
think that,
tenacity.
yes, and I think it's important for young people to hear that, because I think too often young folks think that when they see people who have been established in their careers, they think, oh, well, they're doing this, but they don't see all the steps that you went through to get there,
Oh, the hard
all
work.
the
Oh my goodness.
different, all the different jobs that you had, the different experiences that you had that helped you pull all of this together. So I absolutely love hearing that story. So young people that are out there, remember, you don't necessarily have it all together at 17 or 18.
You
Students are
don't.
thinking
You
about what
don't.
college is or what they want to do. You've got time. You've got time. You
You got
really,
a
really
lot of
do.
time. Mhm.
You really do.
Yeah, and explore. Explore. In
Yes.
my career, I've worked 20 different jobs. 20.
Uh,
And people were like, "Oh, that's outrageous," but it was, I met a goal, I became a manager or something, and then I moved to another job. That was I always kept going up in the scale, right?
yeah.
So you may be set on one idea, but if it's not for you, don't. I would encourage you to find your passion and find something that speaks to you. Topiary and being in nature spoke to me. And it's something I continue to do since I was a kid. I always had that as a side hustle. I tell you, the very first day I moved to Columbus, the next day, so because I rode a bus from Youngstown, I rode the Greyhound from Youngstown to Columbus with 4 bags, and I stayed with an aunt of mine. I lived with my aunt, and the very next day, I took her lawnmower and went walking around the neighborhood and to make some money,
Right.
right? And I got 4 clients that day,
Okay.
and so it was that entrepreneur spirit, and this
Mm-hmm.
was before I started doing the door to door.
Okay.
I already had that aspect of me because I was doing it since I was 10. I was doing that throughout high school,
Yes.
always finding a way of making extra money and to get that hustle on,
Right.
and it started with the lawnmower. Eventually, I got money to buy a weed whacker, and then I had money to buy a blower, and then I was on to something now. I got
Right.
I got some equipment, but it was a lot of hard work. Not gonna
Yes.
lie, it took a lot of years to be able to go full time in
Yes.
my passion, right? But
Mm.
along the way, I learned all these different skills. I was a lead. I was a supervisor at FedEx Ground, but I
Okay.
worked my way up from the bottom. I was a package handler, and then I became a trainer, and then I just kept moving up. So regardless of what position and what job I was, I always had a goal of becoming the best I can be, giving my
Yes.
best
Right.
effort,
Mm.
right? And that led me down the right path to eventually being able to start my business 8 years ago legally. And I finally got an LLC and was like,
See.
maybe I should, put this on paper, and because I'm starting to get a lot of clientele, I could probably make this a business,
Yeah.
and it took off from there.
That's
It took off from there.
fantastic. For those of us that are just joining us, I just want to share again some photos from Mike's website so you can see the type of work that he is talking
Oh, look at
about.
that.
I mean, it's amazing. Look. Uh-oh, I see
It's
something there for some of you
amazing.
cowboy fans. Um, so
That's
just,
my
I
alma
mean,
mater, Cheney High
oh,
School Cowboys.
okay.
Yes, I did a topiary for my high school.
So you can see, folks. So again, I'll make sure that you have his website so that you can go on and that you can see all the other pictures. What I really would love, um, folks that are joining us, please, if you have a comment, if you have a question that you want to ask Mike, please don't be shy. Throw it in the chat so we can make this a conversation. Because I know some of you are out there saying, "Well, I didn't know there were people out here doing this, especially black and brown folks."
Right.
So let's make sure that we
I'm
get those
telling you.
questions going. Let's get those questions going. So one of the things I always talk to my kids about, Mike, is lifelong learning. I said, whether you go to 4-year school, 2-year school, tech school, whatever you do, we're always learning. So one of the things about you is that you have a number of certificates where you have continued learning. So can you tell us a little
Yes,
bit
yes.
about your certificates?
Yes, definitely. You know what? I just got another certificate last week. I just finished another course, and I just signed up for another course this week that starts in August, and I'll be taking another one in October. So,
Okay.
where to start? So, the when I first moved to South Carolina, uh, I I noticed the landscape was different. The plants, the trees, it's a different zone coming from Ohio.
Mm,
It's just a bunch of trees I've never seen before, a bunch of plants I've never was familiar with. So I sought out to be more knowledgeable because I felt like I was at a disadvantage when I'm
mm,
going to different properties. And yes, I could do topiary with any tree, but I want to know the name of it. I want to know that I want to be able to talk the talk with all these other horticulturalists. So I sought out a certificate program out of Clemson called the South Carolina Certified Landscape Professional. And now I have a license. It was a 10-week course. So now I have a license for 5 years in the state of South
mhm.
Carolina that says that I am a certified landscape professional, and I know what I'm talking about. Yes, I know my trees, but then I wanted to know more about the trees. It touched
Right.
on a few trees. So then I sought out another a certificate program. This one was out of North Carolina State University, and the North Carolina Botanic Garden has a program by way of a partnership also with Longwood Gardens. And if people don't know what Longwood Gardens is considered one of the best, not one of the best, it is considered the best garden in the country, and it is one of the best in the world. It is in PA, Kenton Square in PA, and it is a fabulous garden. And
Okay.
if you know anything about the DuPont family, that's who
Mm,
created Pierre DuPont created Longwood. It is fabulous, but you can do some research on it. So they have
okay.
a really great education program, and they did a partnership with NC State and North Carolina Botanic Garden to offer a series of certificate programs. And one of them
Mhm.
was trees, shrubs, and conifers with plant identification and use. So I learned a lot about plant ID, how to use them, where they belong in the landscape or in nature, and just having a better understanding of the nomenclature and the taxonomy
Mhm.
of plants and trees. And then, of course, I got to keep going, right? So I want to
Right.
know more. I heard of this course called CEPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which is a phenomenal course because it teaches you not just how to make your landscape and the landscape around your property and your house or your building safer. It also teaches you how to build better and plan better communities, better cities. So if you're into city planning, if you're into, construction, you're into pretty much anything that has to do with outside and you want to know how to make it safer,
Mm,
take this course. Find where it's offered in your area. Crime prevention through environmental design. It was a phenomenal course that I took, and that was in person, and that was a certificate course as well. And then I'm very interested in therapeutic horticulture because of
mm,
we spoke earlier that I do a lot of speaking engagements and I hold workshops. Well, my workshops are really cool because they're on topiary therapy. So topiary
mm,
therapy allows people to be more focused and connect people back to nature, and allows them to create their own personal topiary. You make a nice 1 gallon, 1 to 2 feet tall
mhm.
shrub, a nice small shrub, and everybody gets the opportunity to make their very own topiary and take it home with them. Oh, it's a beautiful workshop. If you ever had an opportunity to take a workshop from me, you understand. If you haven't,
Okay.
please be on the lookout for workshops that I'll be holding in the near future. So the Intro to Therapeutic Horticulture was a
Mm,
course that I needed to have to learn more about the material and the workshops that I was giving. I was
mm,
already giving these therapeutic, workshops, but I wanted to know more and have a understanding of how to offer the best product
Okay.
Back
Right.
goes back into my sales. I want to be able
Mm-hmm.
to offer the best. I want to sell you the best product,
Yeah.
but I got to know my product. I got to be knowledgeable about what I'm trying to sell, and I can't just sell you something if I don't know anything about it. I can't sell you this. I don't know, the cotton gin machine. I don't know anything about this cotton gin machine. I can't sell it to you because I can't give you any facts. But
Right.
now that I'm familiar and understand my product through therapeutic horticulture, oh, now it makes sense. Now it makes even more sense of now I know
Mm-hmm.
the right communities to offer it to. I know who to reach out to, the proper stakeholders, and how to develop a program, which brings me to my next um, certificate program that I just finished. So I did therapeutic horticulture through North Carolina State University, and they have a 4-part series. So I
Okay.
took the first class was Intro to Therapeutic Horticulture, and I just finished the second class, Therapeutic Horticulture 2, Program Development. And I just signed up for the
Okay.
third class, which it says in August. And then October, I'll finish out the fourth class as well. So I'll have a certificate of mastery in therapeutic horticulture, and I can really offer the best workshops possible to anyone. Yes.
That is fantastic. So we have a question here from an
Oh,
audience
great.
member. What is the most challenging part of being a topiary artist, and what is the most rewarding aspect of being a topiary artist?
Oh, that's a great question, Zach. Great question.
Yeah.
So the most challenging part of being a topiary artist is the time it takes
Mm-hmm.
to create these sculptures. Like when we before we got on, I was explaining to you, Dr. B, that I just got finished from a job. I just came from an hour away. I was working on a topiary there, and it's time consuming. I'll be there all week. I'll go back tomorrow and every single day until it's
Mm-hmm.
finished. So it takes time to create the sculptures. However, the most rewarding is finishing and seeing the faces and the reaction for those who see it. I get so much joy from seeing the customer's face light up after it's finished. Even
Yeah.
I'm about, I want to say I'm halfway done, but I finished some parts within their property
Mm-hmm.
so they can get a chance to see that instant gratification. Their face lit up as soon as they walked out of the door. It's like, wow, and I love that reaction. It's like you don't
Yeah.
even know what to say. You're flabbergasted. You're just,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what you're doing. And last week I was at the South Carolina State Museum, and I just finished that up. So if you're in South Carolina or taking a trip to Columbia, make sure you stop by the South Carolina State Museum and see some cool topiaries in the front of the museum. But once I finished, these women were walking down the steps, and they looked over and it was like, okay, that's real nice, that's nice. But then they had to walk down the steps to be able to look at it from the front. It was
Mm.
a total different reaction. uh, and I love how we compliment each other. I love how Black people compliment each other. It was really unique. We don't have to just say, "Oh, good job." She said, "Oh, that boy bad." And
I love that.
that was very
Uh,
rewarding to see. So I would say that's probably the most rewarding aspect of being a topiary artist. The money's pretty cool too, but that's a benefit of creating beautiful art.
yes.
I would say I'm doing it just to provide for my family, right? But I'm
Mm-hmm.
also, it's so therapeutic for me. It's such
Yes.
a relief. I put these earbuds in and I disappear for hours. For hours, I
Yeah.
disappeared for 5 hours while I was working on that property just now. And it was just, I'm in my zone and I get a chance to
Mm-hmm.
just really relax, be present. It calms me down. I have zero anxiety. I'm stress free. I would say that's
Wow.
probably one of the most rewarding things of being a topiary artist is being able to say that I can do this stress free. I can perform my job and not stress at it at all. I love it, and I wouldn't say it's a job. I'm a vessel, and I'm creating this beautiful artwork through the universe, supply me through this gift. And I'm glad that I was selected to be able to do this. But I also believe that anyone can do topiary. I believe that
Okay.
anyone can do topiary. It just takes time. It takes determination. It takes confidence. Being confident in that vision. It
Yeah.
takes originality, and it takes patience. You
Yes.
have to be patient to develop, and you gotta research. We goes back to what you said previously about wanting to expand my knowledge, on my craft. When I heard of Pearl, that opened up the door to more topiary artists. That opened up to the world of topiary that I was ignorant to. I was creating topiary, but remember, I called it property art. I had no clue what. I thought topiary was just simply spirals and pom poms that you see at rich people's houses. Classical topiary, geometrical forms. That's cool. But what I was doing was taking it a step further. And once I heard of Pearl, I went to the library, and I had this week of discovery, I should call it. I took out every book I could find that mentioned topiary. I'm taking out Dr. Seuss books. I'm taking out any type of book that mentions topiary. And that's when I came across Jake Hobson's book, the Art of Creative Pruning, and that has a full collection of topiary all over the world. And I wanted to learn more about the art of topiary, and educate myself. So I'm a constant student of it. I look at topiary every single day. I'm probably reading about topiary every single day. I'm Googling topiary to see what's new out there. Is somebody else doing a course? Is anybody else doing topiary like me? I'm constantly wanting to educate myself on my craft so that I can be better and give people the best me possible.
So I just wanted to share with the audience. You keep mentioning Pearl Fryer, so I wanted people to see
You got to
this
show some Pearl
website
Fire.
where you can and let me see if I can pull it down a little bit. So we
There's
have
the
him
man
here, a
in action.
photo of him. Yeah. So this is what got you started really expanding on your business. So that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Zach, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it. And folks, please make sure you join in. Let us know. We want to hear from you because this is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing doing this type of work.
It
So
is
as
because
you, oh,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, I wanted to piggyback off of that. You're right. It is amazing work because when you think of topiary, like I said earlier, a lot of people don't consider it or don't
Mm,
think about it. You know, you see landscapers, and people
mm-hmm.
are like, "Oh, you're just a landscaper." No, I specialize in topiary, and that's all I do. I don't cut grass. I don't lay mulch. Nothing against that, but that's how I started. I
Right.
started doing landscaping. I did rugs and mulch. I did everything to beautify the property. I
Mm-hmm.
cut your lawn. I deep edged it. I put your mulch down. I planted flowers. I planted new trees so that I can create topiary with. I did everything. And then eventually it was like, all right, I just
Mm-hmm.
want to hone in on this one niche that no one is doing. No one was doing
Right.
topiary in Youngstown, Ohio. You can buy topiary at a nursery,
Mm,
and that's what got me more interested in creating my own lane. It's finding out, hey, yes, this is interesting. Yes, there's
right.
people that can do this. There are African descent. There are black. Anyone can do this. It doesn't matter your race. I'm not trying to put anybody in a box here.
Mm,
And say, oh, this is just for black people should pursue this. Anyone, any human being. I don't care what color, man, woman, whatever you identify as, you can do topiary, and you should do topiary. You should get a pair of snips and a bypass pruners and get in the yard, or if you don't have a property, go to Lowe's or any nursery and buy you a nice small plant that you can trim. Any type of tree, doesn't matter what type of evergreen it is, it can be topiary. And have fun, just be creative and just start clipping away, and you'll see the relief and the stress goes away, and you'll just fall in love with it, and you'll want to keep going back to buy more trees, just like a plant mom would, right?
right. Right. So I just wanted to pull up some pictures from when you were on Clipped.
Clipped, oh man.
So we'll show a little bit of that for folks to see. I want to share that with them.
Clipped
So
was an
again, this
amazing
is
opportunity.
so again. So how did that opportunity come about for you?
You know, it is really interesting. In my life, things just kind of happen. I believe in divine intervention, and everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And but you also have to put yourself out there so that the universe can see you, so that positive things can continue to happen. And I was posting a lot on Instagram, posting my work. At this time, I probably created over 330 topiaries that I created for Youngstown, Ohio to match our,
Okay.
our area code, which is 330. So I created 330 topiaries around Youngstown, and that kind of put me on the map of in the conversation. Like, okay, who's this guy creating all this topiary? You Google topiary and you'll probably see my name, right? You look up the hashtag topiary on Instagram and you'll probably see my name.
Okay.
You'll see my face, see some of my work, and that's exactly what happened. A couple of a production company that put on this TV show reached out to me via Instagram and said, "Hey, we saw your work on Instagram, and we love what you're doing. We want to talk to you about this show that we're developing." Something about topiary. We're not too sure yet. And this was before Clipped had a name. This was before it was even considered to be picked up by a network. This was their pitch. They were working on a pitch
Okay.
to pitch to networks, and they wanted my insight. They weren't even looking at me as being a contestant. They just was like, "You look like you know what you're talking about with topiary. Just want to pick your brain." And after, first, immediately I said, "Oh, this is spam. There's no way somebody's pulling on my strings, right?" They know I love topiary. Everybody knows I love topiary. Who are these people? Well, I googled the woman that emailed me, and she was a real person. She had a LinkedIn. The company was real. They worked on a lot of different projects, and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll answer the email." And that from that conversation, before we got off the phone, she said, "You know what? I think you would be a good contestant. Would you want to be a contestant on the show?" I'm like, "Sure, why not? This seems pretty cool." She's like,
Right.
"Okay, well, let's get this started." And 10 interviews later, over the course of over the course of a year and a half, it took
Wow.
about a year and a half to get casted for this, and yeah, and I was casted on to this show that got picked up by HGTV.
TV.
Oh,
One of my favorite
HGTV.
channels.
Oh man, it was like, I can't believe this. I remember the call. They were like, "We got some great news. The show has been picked up." It's like, "Oh, who?
Nice.
Netflix? Where is it going? HBO? What is it going?" And they're like, "It's going to HGTV." And it's like, you know. Oh, I remember I hugged my wife and it was crying. I was like, "Oh, it's going to be," and I wasn't even casted onto the show yet, but it was just I had a good feeling. Had a good feeling for it. But yeah, I got on the show, and I tell you what, the very first episode, you meeting your fellow castmates. We don't know each other. We don't know anybody, and they're introducing the judges who are going to judge this topiary competition, right? So they bring out the first person, and it's Chris Lambton, and I am like fanning over him because I was before, but that literally the night before the first episode, I was curious of how HGTV does their productions for reality
Hmm.
shows. So I looked up, what kind of landscape shows do they have? I want to see what kind of angle they're, because there's a lot of flipping shows on
Hmm.
HGTV. Let's be honest, not a lot of the gardening side of it. But they had a
Yeah.
show called Yard Crashers. I don't know if you're familiar with Yard
Yes.
Crashers. Yes, they
Yes.
go to
People. Yes.
a store and say, what type of project are you working on? I want a new patio. And it's like, all right, let's go. Let's build you a new patio. And they build
Yeah.
this
I used to. I
amazing
used to. I used
oasis.
to hang out in Home Depot and Lowe's, hoping I could find them.
Right. Where is he? Well, Chris Lambton is the host of that show. He was
Okay.
the host
Yes.
of that show. And
Yes.
so I binge watched it. I watched like the whole first season. And I wake up the next day and he's right there. I was like,
Oh
"You
my
got to be kidding
God.
me." because they did not. Everything was a surprise. They did not tell us who the judges were
Wow.
because they wanted that real reaction. I'm just like, I
Yeah.
just watched you. Yes, I just watched you last night. I just watched 17 episodes of your face. It's like this is amazing. And then the next judge comes out, and they're like, "Oh, this woman needs no introduction. I'll just bring her out." We're like, "Who could it be?" And it's Martha Stewart.
Wow.
And Martha Stewart walks from around the curtain, and it's just like, it can't get any better than
Wow.
this. Yeah, yeah. And even the next judge, Fernando Wong, he's a phenomenal landscape architect.
Okay.
He's in the industry, known in the industry, but behind the scenes, he's not in the
Okay.
forefront a lot. Landscape architects, but he does the Four Seasons hotels around the
Oh,
world.
okay.
So if you ever been to a Four Seasons and
Yeah.
seen how
Mm-hmm.
beautiful the landscape, he probably was the one who created that and drew it up.
Okay.
So he was a respected person in his own right. So it was like
Mm.
this is amazing. Yeah, but clipped Martha Stewart. She is something else. She is she is such a character. Martha Stewart is hilarious. She was making jokes. She was, very candid. She was, I would say, off script, and they were just loving it. She would say whatever came to her mind. They're like, "That's very Martha." Yes, we respect it. Whatever she says, we kind of just gotta let it go because it's Martha Stewart.
Right.
You don't correct Martha Stewart. You just let her fly. But it was really awesome. I'd say there's two huge moments. There's a few huge moments from the show that stick out to me. One of them was the very first challenge. The very first challenge of Clipped, we have to create a topiary out of a 7 foot tall yew tree. It's a very big tree, very wide
Hmm.
tree. And they're like, all right, we want to see what you guys can do in a sense, right? This is called the quick clip challenge. What can you guys do? You got 4 hours. Go. And I'm
Oof.
like, oh, yes, this is what I've been waiting on. I got my tool belt, I got all my shears on. I'm looking around, and nobody else has, shears like me. Nobody, everybody just immediately starts cutting. I grab my pencil and my pad, and I start sketching because that's what I do when I
Mm.
approach a new topiary. I need to see it. I need to see what I'm going to do. A lot of times I sketch it, but a lot of times I don't. I could just see it in my mind and just go with it. That's the beauty of it. But I'm sketching this out, and I create this beautiful topiary, and I actually won the first challenge. I was the quick clip champion, and Martha just loved it. She loved it so much that once we were finished that day, she had because this was filmed in New York, upstate New York, where Martha also lives. She has a ranch in Bedford up there, and she had some of her crew come over and pick up that tree and planted it in her garden and at her house. So that was really cool that Martha took a winning showpiece, a topiary of mine. So I can say I made a topiary for Martha Stewart.
That is so cool. That's a
Yes,
nice thing to
yes.
add to your resume. That's a
Right.
nice
Let me
thing.
put that on there right
Yes,
now.
stick it on
Made
there.
topiary for Martha Stewart. Celebrity clientele. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. So, folks, again, those of you that are watching, please, let us know what your questions are, your concerns are.
Got
Any of you in there interested in topiary? Anybody in there interested in taking a workshop with Mike? Let us know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because this is all about information for you also to help you. Maybe you want to change careers, or maybe you know a young person who is a gifted artist, but they don't quite know what to do with that artistic talent, and they love being
Yep.
outdoors. Here's a fantastic opportunity to learn from a topiary specialist. So again, and those of you that are watching it on the replay, still can ask your questions.
Yes. One thing I want to point this out is you hit something. Uh, Something you just said that really made me think about, and I wanted to comment on it about people wanting to change careers. And it may
Yes.
not be becoming a topiary artist. That'd be awesome. I wish there was a million more topiary artists all over the world. And I hopefully by, knock on wood, by the time I leave this earth, that I can do that I can inspire a generation
Mm,
of topiary artists that, this resurgence, because topiary spans from beginning of time. since
Yeah.
since people could start cutting, and pruning shrubbery, we immediately started to design, trees and shrubs into beautiful geometric, type form shapes. That was high royalty. If you lived in a castle, Julius Caesar, he had, some beautiful topiaries in his castle. But there's even, ancient Egyptian gardens that we have record of from, hieroglyphics or just cave drawings, and we're able to see that, okay, these highly intelligent Egyptians also had some beautiful gardens. And if they're carving faces into stone, I guarantee you they were carving something and creating topiary. I guarantee they had cat topiary and feral topiaries, and I'm sure they had some really elegant things back then. But when I think of, switching careers, think of horticulture. There is
Mm.
again, I'm just going to speak from my perspective. Uh, and there is a disparity of black and brown people of color in horticulture. I mean,
Mm.
it is quite alarming. Actually, I go to all these, speaking engagements around the country, and I go to, symposiums and conferences, and I tell you, it is quite alarming to see the lack of diversity at these places,
Mm-hmm.
even in upper management. And you'll be shocked at this. You think that you need a degree in horticulture. You don't. You don't need a degree in
Yeah.
horticulture. I tell you, Bill Gates, he didn't have a degree. Steve Jobs, no degree.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some of the richest people in the world. Steve Jobs founded Apple. If nobody knew who that was, Bill Gates, Microsoft, no
Right.
degree. Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, he didn't finish college.
Yeah.
So it's when you, yes, if you want to finish college and go to become the best you can
Yes.
be, please
Do
do,
that.
please do. I have a great friends that are, PhD master students. Oh, did I cut out? Here I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You're fine.
beautiful. I respect them for that. But there are some other leaders in the industry, in my industry of
Mm-hmm.
horticulture, that don't have degrees, or they may have a degree, but it has nothing to do with horticulture, it has nothing to
Horticulture.
do with
Mm.
landscaping, biology, none of that. And these people, get this, are CEOs. They are
Yeah.
CEOs making $500,000 a year. Okay,
Right.
there are people making $500,000 in horticulture. Believe it or not, I
I.
know a lot
I.
of them. I'm friends with a lot of these people, and I'm telling you, they're making great money in horticulture, and they don't have degrees in horticulture, and they came from different industries. I know a brother of mine from Fort Worth Botanic Garden. He just got promoted, and his garden escapes me right now. I'm sorry, Ennis, if you ever see this. But his garden escapes me. But he just became the CEO of this new garden, and he
Wow.
did not have a degree in horticulture. He came from the hospitality business. He was a manager at a very large Marriott hotel. So it tells you that if you have the work ethic, if you put forth that determination to become best in your field, it doesn't matter where you are. You can that translates to any industry.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
mean, I can't go be a doctor, right? That requires schooling. But
Right.
when you're talking about running companies, a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
leaders are from different fields just because they show that they have that leadership aspect. He showed that he had that leadership aspect, and it translated to becoming the vice president, down in Fort Worth, to becoming a CEO. I know a lot of executive directors, a lot of
Mm.
directors in high positions at botanic gardens and public gardens that again came from different industries. So when you think of horticulture, please don't think like, oh, I don't know enough about plants. It's not about just knowing about plants. It's about knowing about
Right.
people and how to manage people,
Mm.
and how to communicate. Communications and management goes hand in hand, and it can take you a very long way. So think about, when let's go back to me doing door to door. That
Right.
door to door experience helped me become uh, a leader in FedEx Ground. That leadership in FedEx Ground, learning how to manage people, helped me in another industry where I was a supervisor. Working at a factory. I was a
Mm-hmm.
certified forklift driver on every forklift, reach, pull, no matter what type of forklift, sit down. I ran them all. I ran all these different forklifts, but then I became supervisor. I became a lead. I became a trainer, and that translated to every single industry I went to. It didn't
Yeah.
matter. And by the time I became a sales manager at Staples, oh my goodness, I had all this knowledge, all this prior knowledge
Right.
and
Right.
skills from all these different industries I worked.
Yes.
Right? You wouldn't think, and becoming a sales manager, the qualifications was having a bachelor's degree. I didn't
Oh,
have a bachelor's
didn't
degree,
have it.
but I became a
Right.
sales manager at one of the best Staples in the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you talk about transferable skills because I talk with students about this all the time, students and young adults, that everything you learn can be transferred into another environment. So don't feel like a job that you have today is well, I'm just doing this just for now. Every
Right.
job that you're in, take something away with it. Understand that you are learning something. You're learning how to work with people. You're learning how to problem solve. You're learning how to communicate. And those skills never go away. I mean, those skills
Right.
transfer to any work environment. Yeah, like you said, some jobs, you want to be a physician or what have you. That's a specialized field. But there are essential core skills that we all need to learn. And you just outlined how you perfectly took all of those skills that you have learned over the years and parlayed those into your own business.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
You
that's
know,
that's fantastic.
Right. It helps me in so many different ways. Being able to know how to negotiate a contract,
Yeah.
is huge. Being able to communicate. I take that door to door skills and my customer service skills from working telesales, and selling
Mm,
on phones and being able to cold call people. I can walk into any place. If I wanted to do a topiary, and I don't do this too much now because it's worked out so much for me that I'm at the point where people call me. I don't have to reach out so much, right? But if I wanted to go down the street and knock on somebody's door, I can do that, and I'm not afraid to do that. And I think you have to get over this fear of the no. Get over the fear of no. People may not even want to apply for a job because they think that
mm-hmm.
they may not have enough skills for it, and they're just going to
Right.
say no. So I'm not going to do it anyway. You're doubting yourself. Don't do that. Never doubt
Yeah.
yourself. Always have that confidence and believe in yourself, believe in your skills that you have, because, like you said, it's transferable. Those skills
Right.
that you developed from these previously jobs, from that job you just want to make it from point A to point B. You worked at Wendy's or fast food.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you learned customer
Exactly.
service skills. You learned how to
Mm-hmm.
communicate to people. You learned how to sell to people. You learned how to upsell to people. All that helps in any
It
other
does.
industry.
It does.
Any other industry. Salespeople are great, um, business-minded people, and a lot of those business-minded people had like sports backgrounds. They
Right.
always say if you're good in sports, if you play sports, you'll probably be good in sales because it's competitive, and you have that
Mm-hmm.
competitive nature, and you want to keep going, right? So regardless, it's transferable. Stick whatever your job that you have now. Take everything that you can from that job until you can get to the next one.
Yeah.
Until
I,
you
I,
you yeah, until you acquire enough skills to move forward and
right.
keep going.
I love what you said, the analogy you used about people in sports moving to sales jobs. I'm laughing because that's my youngest son. He was working in the
See?
sports industry at a university and moved into sales and is loving it and is loving it. And again, just what you said, that competitive drive. That competitive
Oh
drive
man,
is there. Yeah,
it was
I
so much
never
fun.
thought of it that way.
I
Yeah.
loved door to door. I loved sales, any aspect of sales. Once I got into it, it was so competitive. You had to hustle. You had to learn your
Mm,
product, become knowledgeable of what you were selling, and then go out and get it. If you want to
yeah,
get paid, nobody's going to pay you until you make money. You got to go sell it. You got to
right.
close, and you got to know how to do that. And I developed a lot of skills throughout my career of knowing how to do that. So now in my business, I can send out a mass email and know the right words to say
Say,
that will help impulse that customer, that client,
yeah,
to becoming a client, and to be
right.
one to say, yes, we need you. You got to make
Hmm.
it so that the product that you're selling is something that everyone needs, or
Right.
not everyone, but that person that you're selling
Person.
needs.
Yes.
Yeah, that person that you're selling to, because you got to think of that one person. Always
Mm-hmm.
think of the one person. Don't think, it was always a huge discrepancy in having this horrible mindset of approaching a neighborhood and saying, "Oh, I'm about to get all these houses." Don't think like that. "Oh, I'm about to get all the sales." Don't think like that. That's not confidence. You aren't really thinking about how you're going to get all these sales. Focus on the one house at a
Mm-hmm.
time, and then you keep moving forward. I'm going to get this house next one. They said no. All right, I'm going to get this next house.
Right.
That was always, I'm going to get the next person I write, next person I call, the next person I see. They're going to say yes to me, and you have to believe that, because if you start doubting it, people sense it. Just like animals sense that you're
Yeah.
scared, and
Yes.
they sense fear. People sense it. They can see it, and you start stuttering. People are like, "Oh, you're not confident in your product. Why would I buy from you? Why would
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy from you?" Right? So those are some tips you should consider
Yes.
that can translate into any industry,
That
because you're
is
going to
that
have to
is so
communicate
true.
in any industry.
That is so true. I think we have another comment here. Let's see. Um, you have a comment from Brittany Gibson saying your story is so inspiring. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that
I
comment,
wonder
Brittany.
if
We
we're related.
appreciate it. I know, are
Brittany
you?
Gibson. Oh. She has the same last name.
She has the
That's so
same last
peculiar.
name.
Wow.
so,
Thank
so
you,
again,
Brittany.
we do appreciate that. Hey, family has the support. That's
That's my
really
wife.
that's
Yeah.
really important. I know. I remember her name from the
Right.
from the
Okay.
gardens.
Yes. Yes.
I said, "Oh, I think I know that name." So one of the things you did mention is you did mention a book. So let me put the name of
Yes.
that book up here. The Art of Creative Pruning by Jake Hobson. And what I want to say to my folks that live in Cumberland County, this book, I already checked to see if it's there. It is available at your local library.
Mm.
So if you don't want to go out and buy the book, it is available at the Cumberland County Public Library. So check it out. So tell us a little
Find the
bit about
book.
this book and why it intrigued you so much.
All right. So remember, I went to the library and I needed to know more about topiary, but I was also interested in knowing more about Pearl Fryer. I looked up Pearl, mind blowing, saw his website. It's like, okay, who is this man? I looked up every article I could find. I watched a documentary. Uh, Point that out there. There's a documentary on Pearl Fryer that you must
Okay.
see, everyone. It's called A Man Named Pearl. A Man Named Pearl.
I
Okay.
watched
So
it based on your
I went to
recommendation.
the library. What'd you say?
I said I watched it based on your recommendation when I met you 2 years
Oh,
ago.
great. Oh, it's a very inspiring
Yes.
documentary, award-winning documentary about Pearl and his life, and how he transformed the city of Bishopville, South Carolina, with topiary, and became one of the most famous topiary artist in the world. He is considered the GOAT. Okay, there's been a lot of great topiary artists throughout time. Pearl Fryer is considered the GOAT. Okay,
Yeah.
he is the greatest. Now, in the book, and the art of creative pruning, one of the reasons is because they had a section in there, an excerpt about Pearl. So I'm like, okay, what is he talking about, Pearl? He's showing pictures, but then to my other topiaries from around the world. He had some amazing, artwork and styles of approaching creative pruning techniques. And I just thought this was just phenomenal. I checked the book out. I think I was late on returning it. I was like, I just love this book so much. I can't stop looking at it. I had to buy the book, because it's definitely in my library now. I own both of Jake Hobson's books. He has another book called Nawaki. And Nawaki is a style of pruning, a Japanese style of pruning, which essentially is like topiary. It's like the way of life of the tree. And what she's showing now, this is the work I did when I was the topiary artist in resident at Pearl Friars Topiary Garden. So talk about serendipitous, talk about divine intervention,
Yeah.
how that happened. But I'll get into that. But I want to say a couple more things about Jake Hobson in the book. So this book goes throughout the world and finds all these different creative pruning techniques that was used. I mean, there's stuff from Thailand, there's stuff from Taiwan, there's stuff from Japan, China, Russia, the UK, you name it. There's
Mhm.
all kind of different styles in there, and that helped me develop my technique after learning all these different styles and then researching more on those styles. I would say this book was an entry to learning more about the art of topiary, because then I had names to look up. Then I had different type of styles, like there's a type of pruning called girdling, where you prune back the you prune back a shrub all the way to its nubs, all right,
Mm.
and it has nothing. And what happens is it girdles over itself and causes it to just become like a knuckle. And it's really
Okay.
cool. So really,
Nope, I think we froze there for a second.
can you hear me?
Yep, we're back.
Are we
We're
back?
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so many different styles of pruning, and I took all those styles and started testing them out and trying them, and I just thought it was an amazing thing. I see we have a
We
question.
have another comment. So, how do you express yourself through your topiary art? And what is your favorite sculpture you've done?
Oh, how do I express myself through my topiary art? So every sculpture I create is personal. It's personal to the client, and I pour myself through that sculpture. I want to make every single thing I create brand new. I don't want to duplicate anything. I don't want to do this for a client and then do it again for another client. There's not a bunch of Mickey Mouses going around, the country. I've created close to it's over 600 topiaries now, and every single one of them is different. Every single one of them has a personal narrative. They all tell a story, and I feel like that allows me to express myself and show my artwork. Show what I can do, what I'm creative at. You know, I I had a hard time growing up. I was always in trouble. I was constantly in trouble. I got suspended from school all the time. I got all the time. I think back on it, it's just like, man, it's amazing where I came from.
Mm.
The things that happened. I was smart, but I finished at the bottom half of the very bottom half of my class in high school. It was 220. I think I finished 211. I was at the very bottom. Almost didn't graduate. Just because I wasn't applying
Mm.
myself. I couldn't focus. I couldn't find something that really interests me. I was all over the place. I just wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
everything and didn't want to do just that one thing. I didn't want to do my homework. I wanted to do everything else
Yep.
but doing homework.
Yeah.
Then test comes and I'm like, oh, what is this all about? I don't even remember it. But uh, that allows me to eventually um, become more expressive in my artwork. I started to draw
Okay.
more, right? I started doing my hairstyles, my hair sculptures. I started putting hair art and putting designs into people's hair. So I found a way to be able to express myself because I couldn't for so long. I couldn't express I got in trouble for expressing myself. But now I can be
Mm.
free and I can do what I want and I can express myself through my artwork now. So when I do topiary, I get a chance to fully be myself. I get the chance to be Michael Philip Gibson and go out there and create something that's never before seen. Nobody in the world has ever seen anything like this. So I want to, and then I apply different techniques that nobody else is doing. I learned
Right.
all these techniques and I put them all into one. Well, he's doing this, that guy's doing that, she's doing this,
Yeah.
they're doing that, right? And nobody is doing all that into one. So that's what I start doing. Nobody's doing illusion topiary. Nobody's telling a story like how I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what kind of sets me aside. Now that brings me into my favorite sculpture. Oh my goodness. I go through a Rolodex here. Um, just all these images are popping in my mind. Uh, could you pull up the pictures from my website real quick?
Okay. Let's
There's one
see.
on there. Uh, oh boy, I would say there's two. There's two, and I hope that I have the picture on there. I
Let's
can't
see.
remember
Let
if it's
me
on there.
let me pull it up.
But there's a particular property in Youngstown, Ohio. It's called the Manicured House because of how tightly pruned there. That first picture right there with the tall
This one.
R, that one.
Okay.
That one. Actually, I said I had two. It's that one. The very next picture next to it is
Okay.
is my other favorite. That there's a series of four junipers. That's at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens down in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's called um, Resilient Sea. Resilient Sea. It's a play on words
Okay.
because it sits on the bank of St. John's River or St. Peter's River. That could be mistaken, but it runs along the coast of Jacksonville.
Okay.
So as you look at the topiaries, there's four of them. You will also see the letter C. You see, there's one right there,
Okay. Right
very
there.
prominent. Well, there's
Yeah.
also letter C's throughout it, right
Yep.
next to it to the
Going this
left,
way.
going that way. And
Yep.
every variation and every
Okay.
way you look, you'll see the letter C. So it's how many C's do you see as you look out to the sea? Now, these
Wow.
topiaries are very resilient because everything was destroyed a few years ago. I think about 5 years ago, they had a horrible hurricane. I can't remember which one, but they get a lot of them in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it messed up this entire English garden, is where this area is their English garden um, at the Cumber Museum. And it destroyed their azaleas. They had to replace them. But the only thing that lasted was these junipers,
Wow.
these resilient junipers. When they told me
Junipers.
that story, I said, wow, they're very resilient. And then I thought of this concept
Yeah.
of seeing these different letter C's for Cummer, the Cummer Museum. Uh, and then I thought, okay, well, let's have a play on this. So it's something that's really unique and it creates that illusion because it creates uh, a different piece from every aspect, every perspective. So no matter where you're
Right.
looking, no matter where you're walking around, you're going to see something different. So everybody looking at it from all points of views will see something different. They'll see a different sea somewhere else. And as you walk around, it kind of reveals itself. It'll start turning and moving. It's like, oh, I didn't even see that. And then you walk back to the other side and you don't see it anymore. You walk maybe
Okay.
just an inch over to the right and you don't see it until you walk an inch to the left and you say, oh, there it is. At the right perspective, I created something that I want you to see. So resiliency is some of my favorite work. I love that. I'll be down there in a couple weeks to retrim those in Jacksonville. But in Youngstown, Ohio, that the manicured house
Mm-hmm.
is some of my best work. I mean, I've done some really great stuff since then. That was years ago. That was in 2015. I created those and kept them up until I left Youngstown. Now I have a friend of mine takes care of them, but it's just I love the story behind it. The owner, Jim Cobbin, he played for the Negro Leagues,
Ooh.
and it was really the the New York Black Yankees, if I'm not mistaken, was the team he played for. He ended up getting called up to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So he has this amazing story. He's from Youngstown. He moved there. He's this real estate mogul there now. He owns a lot of property throughout. He
Mm-hmm.
owns a transit company. He went to HBCU down here in Columbia, Allen University, actually.
Yeah.
But he is such a wonderful story. Him and his wife have their both stories. So the idea behind that tall sculpture is at the very top. It looks like there's two, but it's just one tree. I split them in half, and there's a splint in the middle that has a zip tie that separated these two leader trunks so that they can look like
Okay.
they're two separate ones. And
Okay. Let me pull that
there's
back up.
yeah, him and his
Okay.
wife is it's a model of him and his wife. So he is on the right, and his wife is on the left. Uh,
Okay.
that is was developed into like a crown on the top. The idea is, as you're looking at this, even from this perspective, is their lives were separate and chaotic to get to the successful lives that they have now, but they eventually intertwine with each other. So it's like a dance. It's an embracing. Depending on how you look at it, you may see, a head, an arm wrapping
Mm-hmm.
around. It looks like it's a dance that they're going through. That these lives that they had to live, these separate paths, eventually allowed them to
Mm.
grow in love and to become these towering moguls in the city of Youngstown. So
Oh.
that was something. How this is how I create that personal narrative. I would come to your house, Dr. B, and I would learn everything about you. I would learn your interests, your passions, your story, your narrative, and I will put that
Mm-hmm.
into the tree so that it becomes something that when you look at that tree after I tell you the
I
story,
love the
then you're like,
story.
oh, I see it. I can embrace that. I can relate to it. And then every time you come home, you're going to sit in the driveway and stare at it because you love that work so much because it means so much to you.
Wow.
That
That-
is one of the most rewarding things. So
Uh,
the question that B said was,
yeah.
those two are by far some of my best work that I love. And again, oh my goodness, there's countless amount of topiaries I could think of that are some of my favorites. But over 600, there's a million going into my mind. There's one
Mm.
in Cortland, Ohio. There's one, oh man, there's one I did in Houston before that was really cool. There's one, those ones in Cape Fear was really nice. I like those.
Mm.
Uh,
Yes.
there's topiary a lot of places scattered across the country that are really cool, inspiring, and tell a really great narrative. So I got a lot of favorites, but those two
To
probably some of my
stand out.
favorites. Yeah,
I love, first of all, I love your passion for what you do because it just exudes from your pores. But I love that you use your topiary work to tell a story. That is,
yes,
that's fascinating. And looking at that picture, and when you're talking about how the trees are intertwining and growing and stuff, you see it. It's like
yeah,
absolutely magical.
yeah, yeah.
It is magical. That is, oh my God, that was so cool. I love that story.
So one thing my I appreciate it. One thing my father always taught me because he's an artist. Actually, this is one of his pictures behind me. Maybe hard to see on camera, but he always told me that your artwork should ask questions.
Oh,
You should always
okay.
create a work of art that asks a question. Don't create something that just it's just there and it doesn't make people wonder. You need to be able to create something that's going to make you stop and wonder. This piece behind me tells a story of this Japanese woman, Madame Fujiwara. She was a 17th century poet, could be before that, could be 14th century poet, but she was a poet in Japan,
Hmm.
a renowned poet. People love her work. She always spoke about like solitude, walks on paths. So after reading some of the poetry, my father was inspired to create a piece incorporating some of the things that he read into the
Mm-hmm.
piece. And if you were able to see this in person, this is a print, but I have a larger
Yeah.
picture of it as well, which is on another wall. So it's in a series. This was,
Yes.
I guess, a continuation of the walk. He decided to create some more of it, but he has a bigger piece that he did in pastel that's really magnificent. Is just phenomenal. He's my favorite artist, and I just love his work. But what he was creating was telling this story, this narrative. When
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it, I was like, okay, this is really nice. But then it makes you wonder, well, where is she walking? It splits in these two paths, and the way
Mm.
he positioned her feet, you aren't sure if she's going to go to the left or is she going to go up to the right. You don't know if
Mm.
she, where did she just come from? Did she come around the path? Because it's another path that splits behind her. Did she come?
Mm-hmm.
Which path did she come from? What is she doing on this day? Why is she walking through these bamboo woods? There's koi fish
Right.
in there. There's a waterfall further back. There's all kind of different things to look at that makes you wonder and ask questions. What is that? What is going
Mm.
on over there? How did you get to that island in the middle? Is there a boat? Oh, there's a boat there. Is she about to go to the boat? Does she know the person on the boat? It's just all these different questions come to mind. And that is something that I think of when I'm doing topiary. I think of how can I ask a question? When I create something, I want to create it that's going to make people stop in their steps
Mm-hmm.
and stare at this and ask, what is that? Well, why is that going like that? Why is that shaped like that? Well, why does that complement that? And there's so much that goes into it. I studied a lot of sacred geometry and learning different shapes and how they relate to the universe, how everything's
Mm.
connected. So
Right.
all my topiaries, they fit in their space because of how the angle is, how the perspective is, the balance, the rhythm of it. And I learned that from studying fine art back when
Yeah.
I was 19, going to
Right.
YSU. I learned the fundamentals of art and 2D design, and learning sculpture and have an understanding of that. And
Yeah.
that years later, I was able to keep
To use
perfecting
it.
and keep learning more.
Yes.
Yeah, keep and expanding upon that knowledge that I learned earlier on, and started researching more about different art because I had a foundation, but I carried that years later, and that translated to what I'm doing now. Yes.
Oh, Mike, this has been fabulous. I feel like okay, now I need to go out and buy me some tools and start reading some
Yes.
books and start practicing because
Here's
your enthusiasm for what you're doing, but also um, I think the message that you're giving to young people about, transferable skills, about finding what works for you. I mean, there are so many kids that have your story about being in school and getting in trouble because they couldn't sit still
right.
or they couldn't focus. I'm thinking of
Growing
my
up in
own.
the hood,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
grew up in gang territory,
yeah.
and I think that's something else speaks to my story that people don't even know. It's like I grew up in blood territory in Youngstown,
Oof,
Ohio, and I love Youngstown, but the
yeah,
street I grew up on was very rough. It was
yeah.
very rough growing up, and you had to survive. You had to hustle. You had to have something
Mm-hmm.
going for you. I feel it to be respected in Youngstown because it's so small. If you're not doing anything, you're immediately going downward, right? But if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing something with your life, you can make it in Youngstown. All those distractions and everything else going on. My father kept us busy. My parents kept us busy in the yard. My mom did the flowers, and I helped lay the mulch, and we'll plant flowers around the house. I have three older sisters. We all worked in the yard as a family. We all had different duties, different skills that we had to do. And it just because my father, he's a Navy veteran, so he carried those skills into his family.
Right.
Yes, but it's you're right. So many people have this story. They don't believe that there's something for them. There is. Find your passion. What do you love? What do you love? You know, I hear young people all say, "Oh, I want to." I spoke at this school recently, and I went around asking, "What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be?" And people are saying, "Oh, I want to be an artist." Great, pursue it. Do everything
Right.
you can to
Mm-hmm.
become an artist. Take out books out the library. Watch YouTube. Learn how to draw. Learn from the greats. Learn all these other artists out there. Oh, I want to be a rapper. Okay, then be a rapper. Learn poetry. Learn how to write a haiku. Learn how to do
Mm-hmm.
spoken word. Learn how to do all these things and come familiar with every artist out there, different genres. Learn how people rap in Jamaican, or how they rap in the UK, or how they rap in Chinese.
Right.
Be a steward of your craft. Learn
Yeah.
everything you can. What was the line that Martin Luther King said? If you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper you
Who
can
you
be.
can be.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Do everything
Exactly.
you can to be the best person you can be, best human being you can be. And I'm telling you, you will thrive and you will become more passionate in what you're doing. I hated doing the yard. We had these two walnut trees, and there's a bunch of trees in around the house that drop leaves constantly. So I had to literally sweep the driveway every day,
Yeah.
because like my father, who's in the Navy, you had to clean that ship, whether it was dirty or not. You had to clean that ship in your barracks, wherever you were at. You had to clean it every day.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught us those skills, that you got to make your bed every day. You got to clean your room every day. You got to clean the bathroom, the kitchen. You got to sweep that driveway every single day. I swept that driveway from I was 4 years old till I was 19, till I left the house. But I tell you what, I can sweep a driveway.
Wait.
I can sweep. I know how to use a broom, but it's that persistence, that
Right.
diligence, that
Right.
determination, that confidence that's of a skill I eventually hated. I began to love. Oh, like I said, by 10, I was doing the neighbors. I couldn't wait to get into the yard and sweep that driveway. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't wait to pick up or rake the leaves and trim the bushes and cut the grass and plant the flowers. I couldn't wait for it. I
Yeah.
would go. It got to the point where I was in the yard and my parents didn't have to tell me to be
Because
there.
you
Right?
would just go out and get
I
it
was,
done.
I would just go get it done. I would
Yeah.
go get it done. And that is a message in itself. Go get it done. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. Don't wait for somebody to ask you, what you want to do, what you want to be. Find your passion and go get it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful message to end this on. For folks that want to follow Mike, to see more of his work, to attend his workshops, to hire him to come and do a workshop for you, here's all his information here. Please check out his Instagram, check out his Facebook page, check out his website, connect with him on LinkedIn. You have a phone number there, so you can't say I can't reach him. You have an email. You have every mode of
Everything you need.
communication that you need. So please, 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 if you're interested in this, hey, you might be interested. Maybe you're doing a career day and you want to bring them to your school as a speaker. Those of you in career and technical education that have horticulture programs, perfect speaker for one of your programs. So again, folks, reach out. You have his contact information. Don't be shy. You see that, when you go on his website, you'll get to see some more of his absolutely beautiful work. But I just want to thank you for showing your enthusiasm for what you do. I want to thank you
Thank you.
for the wisdom, the wisdom that came from you tonight, because I think it's so important for young people to understand that careers take all forms and there's so many ways of getting there, and it's not always a straight path. It's not always a
Mm,
straight path. We do a
we
lot
all
of
over the
we're
place.
all over the place,
Circle
but
back around and
and you took everything that you learned and put it into your business and
yes.
put it into your business. So again, thank you so much, Mike, for being here with us. I really appreciate it. Folks who are tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. And those of you that are watching this on the replay, remember, you can still ask questions. Well, I'm always checking it. So again, thank you so much. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future. I will see you probably next month when my crew of seven, when we're seven us are here, and we're talking about our conference that we will be attending next month. So again, take care, everyone. Mike, hang on. Take care, everyone, and I will see you soon. Might even be doing a pop-up. So take
All
care,
right.
folks. Be good.
Thank you for joining. Have a good one.